Moon Taeil, a main vocalist of NCT 127, debuted under SM Entertainment in 2016 and quickly earned praise for his powerful high notes and emotional performances. But in mid-2024, everything changed.
Moon Taeil, former member of the K-pop group NCT, has been accused of
NCT's Tae-il has been removed from SM Entertainment.
Moon Taeil, wearing a plain black suit and looking visibly tense, quietly walked into the courtroom. He was joined by his co-defendants, identified by their surnames Lee and Hong, standing trial for the same serious charge. During the hearing, Taeil introduced himself to the court as a former singer, explaining that he had been fired from his entertainment company after the case became public. His lawyer confirmed that Taeil was now unemployed and only working part-time at a friend's restaurant to get by. All three men faced the same charge: aggravated quasi-rape, a serious crime under South Korean law. This charge applies when a person commits sexual assault or molestation against someone who is unconscious or unable to resist, and it becomes even more serious when multiple offenders are involved or when a weapon is used. In this case, the prosecution said the assault was committed by 3 individuals against a woman who was too intoxicated to respond, making it a case of special quasi-rape, which can lead to a sentence of up to 10 years in prison. In court, the prosecutor explained the events of that night step by step, laying out a clear timeline of what allegedly happened on June 13, 2024. According to the prosecution, the incident began in the early hours of June 13, 2024. Around 2:33 a.m., Moon Taeil and his 2 acquaintances met a woman at a bar in Itaewon, a lively nightlife district in Seoul's Yongsan-gu. The woman, a Chinese tourist visiting South Korea, had been drinking for several hours. Witnesses later told the court that she appeared extremely intoxicated. She couldn't stand or walk on her own. Her speech was slurred, and she didn't seem to understand what was going on around her. The prosecution stated that Taeil and his friends drank with her, then made a critical decision. Instead of helping her get home safely or calling for medical help, they helped her into a taxi and took her with them to a private residence in Bangbae-dong, a quiet neighborhood in southern Seoul. Between 4 a.m. and 4:30 a.m., while the woman was unconscious from alcohol, the prosecution claimed the 3 men sexually assaulted her together. The woman later woke up in an unfamiliar place, feeling confused and scared. She had no memory of what had happened and suspected something was very wrong. She filed a police report, and a formal investigation was launched. Police retrieved CCTV footage, tracked phone data, and conducted medical tests, all of which would later be used as major evidence in court. What surprised many was Taeil's behavior the very next day. On June 14th, just hours after the alleged assault, he appeared live on Instagram to celebrate his birthday, smiling, thanking fans, and acting as if nothing had happened. The Seoul Bangbae police station had requested them in June 2024, but the court ruled that the suspects had already admitted to their actions and were not likely to flee, so they did not need to be detained. Taeil was first summoned by police on August 28, 2024. Eventually, on February 28, 2025, he was formally indicted without detention by the Women and Children Crime Investigation Division, one of the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office. Meanwhile, SM Entertainment issued an official statement confirming that Moon Taeil's contract had been terminated on October 15, 2024. They explained that because Tae-il was under criminal investigation by prosecutors, it gave them legal grounds to end his exclusive contract. The company also stated that their trust in him as an artist had been broken. As a result, both sides agreed to terminate the contract through mutual consent. In court, the prosecution presented several pieces of strong evidence that they believe proved Moon Taeil and the other 2 men were guilty of a serious crime. The first and most powerful evidence was CCTV footage. This video showed the woman leaving a club in Itaewon with the 3 men. She looked extremely drunk. She could barely walk and needed help standing. One camera angle clearly captured the 3 men supporting her as they helped her into a taxi. According to the prosecution, it was clear from the footage that the woman was in no condition to walk or make any decisions on her own. Next, the prosecutors showed messages exchanged between Taeil and the other 2 men. These texts were sent before, during, and after the night of the incident. One message read,
"If she falls asleep, that's bad."
Another said,
Make sure the GPS doesn't trace where we're going.
and after the night ended, one of the men messaged.
Delete the chat.
These messages made the prosecution's argument stronger. They suggested that the men knew the woman was not in a condition to consent and that they were trying to hide what had happened. The timing of the texts, especially after the incident, also showed an attempt to erase evidence. The prosecution told the court,
This is a grave case involving the group sexual assault of a foreign female tourist, with extremely heinous criminal conduct. The defendants even discussed sending the victim away in a taxi to a different location to obscure the crime scene and prevent police tracking, exploiting the fact that the victim was a foreigner.
They added,
It is highly questionable whether the defendants genuinely regret or reflect on their actions based on their claims.
Medical tests were conducted after the woman reported the incident. These tests showed that DNA from all 3 men was found on her body. This confirmed that sexual activity had occurred. It also supported the victim's belief that she had been assaulted while she was unconscious. DNA evidence is hard to deny, and this played a big role in strengthening the prosecution's case. The next big point was about Tae-il turning himself in. His lawyer said that he voluntarily went to the police and admitted what happened. They said this showed he felt guilty and wanted to take responsibility. However, the prosecution pushed back strongly. They said that Tae-il only submitted his confession after the police had already identified him, carried out search and seizure actions, and collected critical evidence like CCTV footage and phone records. The prosecutor said,
2 months after the incident, police identified the defendants and conducted a search and seizure, after which they submitted a document labeled as a surrender. It is doubtful whether this qualifies as a genuine surrender under legal standards.
In other words, they believe Tae-il confessed only after he realized there was no way to deny it. The victim had also submitted a letter called a cheo bail bulwon seo. This is a Korean legal term that means, I don't want the person punished. Sometimes this means the victim and the accused reached a private agreement or settlement. But again, the prosecutor said that even if the victim forgives, the crime is too serious to ignore. The court has to give punishment if the law says so, especially in sexual violence cases. Taeil's lawyer then presented several reasons why the court should consider a lighter sentence. He explained that Tae-il had no previous criminal history and had been active in the public eye from a young age. The lawyer emphasized that Tae-il had maintained a clean image, participated in charitable activities, and had received character reference letters from people who knew him personally. After the incident, Tae-il completed a sexual offense prevention education program, underwent psychological counseling, and has been trying to rebuild his life. The defense also pointed out Taeil's current struggles. His mother had to resign from her job due to the backlash caused by the case, and Tae-il himself was financially unstable. Since leaving NCT and losing his entertainment contract, he has only been earning a small income by helping at a friend's restaurant. Additionally, the lawyer said Tae-il was still recovering from a previous traffic accident and trying to reintegrate into society. Regarding the case itself, the defense argued that the crime was not planned in advance. They claimed it happened in a moment clouded by alcohol and poor judgment, rather than as part of a deliberate or premeditated act. They also reminded the court that Tae-il had submitted a confession 2 months after the incident and that a settlement had been reached with the victim, who submitted a petition asking for no punishment. Based on these points, the lawyer requested leniency during sentencing. Finally, the prosecutor stood again to summarize the case and recommend punishment. They pointed out that the defendants had submitted handwritten letters asking for reduced punishment and leniency, but argued that these letters should not be considered genuine acts of surrender. The prosecutor also stated that it was inappropriate for the defendants to seek leniency based on each other's claims of remorse. They said this did not meet the legal standards for true reflection or surrender and risked weakening the meaning of accountability in serious crimes like this. Based on the evidence, the behavior of the defendants, and the gravity of the crime, the prosecution asked the court to impose the following punishment: 7 years in prison, a 10-year ban on employment involving children or vulnerable individuals, mandatory completion of a sexual violence education program. Then the judge asked Tae-il if he wanted to say anything. He stood up and said quietly,
I am sorry to everyone who feels disappointed. If granted leniency, I will treat it as the last chance in my life and strive to contribute to society in any way possible.
It was a simple statement, but it felt heavy. He didn't cry. He just looked down, clearly feeling the weight of the moment. The courtroom was silent again. The judge didn't give a final sentence that day. Instead, they said the sentencing will happen on July 10th. So for now, everything is on hold. While Taeil's admission of guilt and the victim's petition for non-punishment may affect the court's decision, the seriousness of the case cannot be ignored. The charge, aggravated sexual assault against an unconscious foreign tourist, has left the public stunned and the entertainment industry shaken.